Welcome to the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce Education Committee Network's PAC 14 TV show, Education is Everybody's Business. My name is Ladd Colston. I am a business member with the Chamber and the CEO of Sustainable Visions, LLC. I will serve as your host for today's educational topic, Public School Superintendents on the Eastern Shore and the challenges they face implementing the blueprint for Maryland's future. Sponsored by the Community Foundation of the Eastern Shore, Chamber CEO Bill Chambers, and our Education Committee Network members want this TV show to be a source of community awareness and knowledge of topics that impact education and workforce development here on Maryland's Lower Eastern Shore. We appreciate you listening in and providing us with your feedback on its usefulness. Please subscribe if you're viewing this show on YouTube, and a thumbs up if you like it. In this regionally informative episode of Education is Everybody's Business, we will talk with the 4 county public school superintendents here on the Lower Eastern Shore and have them share with you their accomplishments, challenges, and strategic initiatives for the future. We will converse with Mr. W. David Bromwell, Superintendent of Dorchester County Public Schools, Dr. John B. Gaddis, Superintendent of Somerset County Public Schools, Dr. Micah C. Stauffer, Superintendent of Wicomico County Public Schools, and Mr. Lewis H. Taylor, Superintendent of Worcester County Public Schools. For those of you who do not know, the Blueprint for Maryland's Future is a landmark legislation passed in 2021, which includes comprehensive changes to nearly every aspect of Maryland's public education system. It will increase annual education funding by over $3.8 billion over the next 10 years. It will enrich student experiences, accelerate improvements in student outcomes, and improve the quality of education in Maryland. The blueprint itself is organized into 5 pillars or priorities. Number 1, early childhood education, which features no-cost pre-K. Pillar 2, high quality and diverse teachers and leaders, featuring a starting salary across the state of $60,000 by 2026. Number 3, college and career readiness, which will feature 10th grade career standard. Pillar 4 is more resources for all students to be successful, which features supports for historically underserved students. And Pillar 5, lastly, governance and accountability, which features an accountability implementation board, AIB, that will do site visits at each county. It should be noted that student education, and when I talk about student education, we're talking about pre-K all the way through college, is extremely challenging nowadays. We have the daily concerns of COVID-19 infections and hospitalizations. We have hunger and homelessness, gun violence and random shootings in schools and in our local community neighborhoods, social media influencing student peer pressure, domestic violence and trauma in the home, climate change and unexpected natural disasters. We have global conflicts, mental health, anger management, and hopelessness. In this current environment, the roles and responsibilities of a public school superintendent are many. Let's listen and hear what some of the accomplishments, challenges, and strategic visions our regional superintendents would like for you to know as they take on these challenging times that we live in today. Got a few questions, and I want to first start out with the question, what are some of the more significant accomplishments and achievements that you would like our viewing audience to know as you highlight the Dorchester County Public Schools?
So the highlights, I've had an interesting road as a superintendent because I started out as an interim superintendent first. We had some turmoil in our system, and the board members kind of wanted me to come in and stabilize some things. And I actually was like, wow, I'm doing okay, and I'm listening to my peers on the shore and the peers across the state of Maryland that are superintendents. I'm like, I can do this job. But then, it's kind of hard to do this interview and talk about accomplishments and not mention the pandemic, even though that P word is everyone wants to move on from. There are so many things that came about during that time, positive and negative, because Dorchester County wasn't a one-on-one electronic computer district at that time. And the state superintendent said, you will be one because we're gonna have to go remote. So that is one of the most biggest things that I think our county, our school system needs to hang their hat on, and our IT department and so forth, is that we were able to do that. Most school systems take anywhere from 3 to 5 years to gradually implement a one-on-one system, and we did it in 3 months. But with that, we've also learned that the pandemic, it created a lot of mental health issues, and it brought them to the forefront. And through the emergency funding that we received, the ESSER 1, 2, and 3, those types of things that came from the state and federal government, we were able to do some things we've never been able to do before, which is your social workers, add more of them, providing more school counselors, providing more mental health services. We have 13 mental health providers that are a part of our system right now that we never had before. So I really feel like we have more employees to address the high needs of our students and even our staff members than we've ever had before. I think I did bring in some stabilization in our county, but now we've embarked on a Navigate to 28, which is a strategic educational plan that we spent all last year going out to all the different schools and getting community input. And the community was learning about the blueprint as well as how we're going to implement the blueprint in with the strategic plan so we could be successful. And that, I think that is the route we needed to go, and we're on that route right now. The question is, all the other questions that are coming out of the blueprint on what we can and can't do. So I don't know if that's going to lead you to your next question.
It sure is, because I wanted to talk to you about the blueprint for Maryland's future. In essence, it brings financial resources, and it does bring supports to Dorchester County. But on the flip side, it also requires accountability and student outcomes. So as we talk about the blueprint in Dorchester County, what are some of the challenges that you currently foresee for Dorchester County Public Schools in particular as you implement the blueprint both now and I think for the next 8 years?
Mm-hmm. So as they were talking about the blueprint, as I came in to being the interim superintendent, they were projecting in their logarithm, Dorchester County Public Schools was going to get an increase of $6.7 million. And I'm like, well, if you do that, we can make this happen. And we get in our budget season on when it's all supposed to go down and it's all live and it's January 23rd of that budget year. And suddenly, we dropped off the cliff when it came to, you're not getting anywhere near 6.7 million. So you're going to hear all our friends talk about, or my peers, professional peers, the superintendents say, it's an unfunded mandate. And it's applying pressure to school systems to figure it out, but it's also applying pressure to the local county councils who, I'll use ours as an example, usually maintenance of effort for them was anywhere from $200,000 to $500,000. Well, they got hit last year with a bill of $3.3 or $3.8 million. That was $3 million that they weren't used to. And what the blueprint isn't taking into account is, all right, what is your tax base? Can your tax base take that increase? And we're finding out that quite a few tax-rich counties, okay, you're kind of okay. But, like Caroline, ourselves, Somerset County, you're going to hear them say, our tax base can't support this.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting as we kind of proceed through these 8 years.
Correct.
of the blueprint, how it's all going to take place. And I thank you for taking the opportunity to kind of share some of the highlights, if you will, and also some of the unknowns like the tax base. Mm-hmm. I want to switch up a little bit because as a superintendent, you have the ultimate responsibility for the performance and safety of students, not only your students, but also your teachers and staff here in Dorchester County. And so the question is coming up is, what is, as superintendent of Dorchester County Public Schools, what is your position on school-based discipline and consequences for students under the Maryland State Department of Education mandate and the state legislation, House Bill 1114. And I think that 1114 pertains directly to prohibited behavior on school grounds and property.
I go to bed at night and I always struggle sometimes putting my head on a pillow when it comes to the safety of our staff and students, because all school systems, you're a microcosm of your community. And, using that P word again, the pandemic created a very different dynamic in our community. And what we learned in our local community is that our young people from the ages of like 12 to 24 to even some 24 to 30-year-olds, they basically were doing some things they weren't supposed to. And we've had some violent crime in our community right out this window here. And it's very localized for the most part. But ultimately, we knew during the pandemic when all this violent behavior began, which it involved shootings, it involved murders, it involved young people being deceased. And we knew when we were coming out of the pandemic and kids were going back to school, we needed to look at this, because ultimately these children and students are going to be in our schools. I'm going to use the G word, the gang activity. I think the pandemic promoted that, and there are some small pockets that are definitely here. And one of the things that I applaud our board members for, they said, we need to make our schools safe, and they voted to have weapons detection systems in schools. These are not metal detectors. These are weapons detection systems. They detect weapons. But again, going back to the blueprint, we do have more social workers now that are working with the schools and our students and families. But we have to be safe. That doesn't change the process anymore to an administrator, for that matter, going down to a teacher when it comes to administering some form of discipline. There still has to be due process involved with students, and we go through all that. And we're actually trying to put more interventions in place before it gets to a true reactionary, disciplinary form. Our board members have agreed to reach out and do a contracted alternative program at the high school level. They approved that this year. That's in place. It's taken a while to get started, but that's started. So we're looking at various ways that, it's not about getting a student out of sight, out of mind. It's about, if a student is not being able to function properly in that larger environment, can we put them in a place for them to be successful and continue on with their educational career and be successful in school, because they still have to be college and career ready when it comes to their 10th grade year. So we've done a lot in my 5 years here, but the question becomes where do you stop? I don't know if you ever stop. We have the Zonar system on our school buses that when it's used properly by our students, because they forget, they're supposed to zone in. So we know exactly what bus they're on, where that bus is throughout the county. We know how fast the school buses are going now. So all those little things I would have never thought would have been a part of education, now is a major part of education, and you got to think about that in your budget process every year.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share all of this great information regarding Dorchester County Public Schools, and we wish you the best.
I appreciate that. It's fun it's great talking to you, and don't take it easy on those other superintendents.
Coming to you from the official crab capital of the world, I would like to introduce our viewing audience to Dr. John B. Gaddis, Superintendent of Somerset County Public Schools. Thank you so much for being a part of this show and, if you will, highlighting some of the challenges and accomplishments that you are experiencing here in Somerset County Public Schools.
Well, welcome to Somerset County, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about our school system and the things we're facing. I think one of the biggest accomplishments we've had in recent years has been the development and the building of our new technical high school. What we have been able to do in that building and for our students in our community has far overachieved, if you will. We've had quite the experience with the number of students that we put through that building, and it's really been a change for our students where everyone talks about college and career readiness. We call it career and college readiness because when you look at our data, most of our students go to work afterwards. They have to go to work because of their situations. So the technical school was the number one thing. I also believe the second major accomplishment has been something we did 7 years ago called the Community Eligibility Provision. And that is where we feed all of our students a breakfast and a lunch at no cost, because we wanted to take the struggle of finding money for meals. We wanted to take the stigma of free and reduced lunch away from students. So now everybody, does not matter. Every single student receives a free meal, breakfast and lunch, and then after school programs, there's snacks, and then could be a dinner as well. The other thing that we're very proud of, but yet we're not where we want to be, is how our students are achieving. When you have a high poverty situation, you're not going to have everything right where you want it to be. In other words, the readiness skills of the students may not be where it needs to be when they enter school. So we work hard, we want to do better, but our students coming from the poverty levels that they're coming from, either first or second in the state when you look at different measures, we're very happy with what they're doing and how they're achieving and how they're growing. So for me, those are three things we're very, very happy with in Somerset County.
That's phenomenal. I will say that Technology High School is one beautiful structure, extremely modern, fantastic, and I like the idea of feeding the kids. That's so important. This blueprint for Maryland's future, in one aspect, it provides financial resources and support to Somerset County, but it also requires some outcomes and some measurables in return. What do you see as some of the challenges for implementing that blueprint here in Somerset County, both now and also for the next 8 years?
Ladd, I think the first thing is the implementation plan. It really is a fast-paced plan, and I think that may have to be adjusted. And we're seeing that a little bit with the legislative branch talking about, well, we need to slow this down. There's a lot to do. There are 5 pillars, as we know, in the blueprint, and that's a lot going on at one time. So a staggered implementation schedule really, I believe, would be the best thing. Now, specific to Somerset County, we receive about 76% of our budget from the state. So yes, we're going to receive a lot of money from Blueprint, but the local is also going to have to put quite a bit of money in. When you're already taxed, we are one of the counties that has the highest piggyback tax in the state and one of the highest tax rates in the state of Maryland. There's very little more that the county can do, the county commissioners. So they're going to have to come up with a substantial amount of money, which is going to be tough, even though it's only about 20% of our budget. So the financial part of it is really going to be something. The other part is, how are we going to run a school system? So when we look down the road, what's it look like with a teacher only teaching 60% of the time? They're going to be working with their other team members and their mentors that other 40%, but does that mean more teachers? And so if we look at hiring more teachers, do our buildings have enough space for these teachers? So you run into wanting to do good things, but there are unintended consequences. Can our facilities handle all these 3-year-olds coming in? Is there space? And then where's that money going to come from? So for me right now, it's implementation, but down the line, what are some of the unintended consequences as far as money, as far as facilities, as far as finding teachers? Because right now we're at a low point in the state of Maryland with the number of teachers that are produced every year. It's not enough to even fill Maryland schools. So looking forward, I really do wonder what adjustments, what amendments, if you will, what changes are going to take place, and what will Blueprint really look like as we move down 5, 6, 7 years. And that is a very hard thing to plan for. We use an analogy, we're building an airplane as we go down the runway. And that's kind of what's going on here, because we've already seen changes. So it's hard to lay out a strategic plan when it's always changing. And then on the back side of that, there's great accountability for student performance, for financial responsibility. And so there are a lot of changes that are going to happen with the not only how we have and treat personnel and deal with personnel, but the personnel we have on staff.
Yeah, that seems to be a ongoing trend across the lower shore, especially as we embrace pre-K as part of the pre-K through 12 situation, and the teacher shortage and the incoming immigrant population here on the shore as well. Dual language. So across the board, it's going to be interesting. As having the ultimate responsibility for the safety and security of your students, your teachers, your staff, what is your current position on school-based discipline and consequences for student outcomes as we look at the Maryland State Department of Education mandates? And I think there's a proposed legislation pertaining to prohibitive behavior on school grounds and property.
Well, I think the House bill is something that is being supported by the 24 superintendents in our organization, the Public School Superintendents Association of Maryland, called PSAM. I believe that there needs to be progressive discipline. And I believe that there are a lot of these things that need to be handled in the school, in the schoolyard. We'll take care of it. Our first priority has to, because of the world we live in, has to be the safety and security of our staff and our students. So for us in Somerset, in every building, there's a secure vestibule. You can't just walk in. You have to be buzzed in. In our high schools, once you're buzzed in, you still can't get in. There's another set of doors that you need to go through. We have cameras everywhere. So what we're finding is we need to protect ourselves and take care of inside the building, but also outside. So with our students inside, we have a very strict discipline code that was sent home to every parent by me with a letter. We use progressive discipline, and we believe that there are infractions that happen in school that we need to handle, and we are very tough on those. One of the things we're very concerned about is physical aggression among students, not only towards other students, but towards teachers. We handle that with severe consequences, and I've had them already with 10-day suspensions with requests for 45 days. and we will put students out for 45 days. We are not going to tolerate that, and our board supports it. Now, during that time, they're still our student. We provide work, we provide tutoring as needed, but you cannot allow those behaviors to be in. What happens, though, is families jump around, and records are slow to follow. So as a state, we need to find some way to let the school systems handle the discipline, but at the same time, help us be able to send files quicker. The other thing I like to say on this is with the new law that you can't charge someone that's under the age of 12. There are still things that happen in schools, despite everything we do, that should be a chargeable offense. When a student assaults a teacher, that should be a chargeable offense. I don't care what age the student is. And I'm here to support students and help students. But when you just say, oh, it's okay, you were having a bad day, I understand some of that does happen in severe cases with students who may have an IEP, and the student has another disability that causes them to act out. But when a student intentionally does something to another student or to a staff member or to the building, or is at a basketball game or a hockey game or a spring event at baseball or softball, and does something, there have to be consequences for those behaviors. And I'm okay with it being a school consequence as well as something further on to let the student know these behaviors are not acceptable. And so we support that bill. We like the local control aspect of it, but I really do believe that we need to look at certain offenses that happen, and they need to be dealt with through the legal system as well.
Yeah. It's a different world, and I think COVID did have an impact because you got the kids that spend so much time watching TV, and then they're influenced by social media, and they have lost the social skills.
Yes.
The interpersonal skills are not there.
Many times the only structure they had was that school day.
Exactly.
You know, and we always send reminders out. It's Christmas time. Understand, Christmas isn't a happy time for a lot of students. And oh, by the way, we're going to be off for 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks of structure lost. So when they come back in January, we've got to go through our procedures, even our high school students, get back into shape, get to school on time, do what you need to do. And so that structure was gone for a year and a half. And those are very formative years.
As we move forward, could you identify some of the dreams or major initiatives that you would like to see added to the Somerset County Public School System?
I think one of the things that we have found out that truly impacts achievement, and we've seen it with our technical high school, is facilities. We have very old buildings, and we're in the process now of planning a North End Elementary School, which would be a big school, but I think we have to address our facilities, and we're going to do that at the elementary level. There is something that folks in Somerset have fought for a while, and that is consolidation of a high school. But what we could offer our students academically, sports-wise, from taking these relatively two older buildings and combining things. I think future boards, future superintendents are going to have to look at that. I also think there has to be a way, and in my 11 years, I haven't found the magic pill for it yet, but the effect of poverty on students, it's just tremendous. And we've always said that education is your way out. Working hard is your way out. There's got to be more to that because our achievement is not where we want it to be. And we are in 3-year-old programs in our buildings. We're doing everything we can to help our students. And my dream is that education becomes the single most important thing in Somerset County. It truly has to be a priority in every household. It truly has to be a priority for every person. When they're paying their taxes, they understand that the school system needs that support. We rely too heavily upon the state. And when you do that, guess what? That's when those state mandates come down and we lose part of that local control. And we try and educate and tell folks that there is no such thing as free money. There are always strings. And those strings have grown politically, people bringing in different beliefs. And so I just want education to be that priority and for people to understand that if we put everything that we have into our youth. That is the biggest economic factor you can have in Somerset County. Businesses will come, people will come if you have that in your school system. And so when I think about achievement, the whole ball rolling in supporting the school system, and as we move down, whatever blueprint is and what comes after blueprint, it's all about our students and our youth, because the future of Somerset County is looking forward. It's not the good old days. I mean, I remember my good old days, but we had to move away from those. And we've got to do the same thing here and just keep moving forward to benefit our students.
Well, I love your theme, success, nothing less. And it'll be interesting to identify successful students that have come out of Somerset County schools, that have gone on to successful careers, maybe even through the technology high school, that can be brought back to show the young ones, look, this is what happens, okay, when you succeed here.
Absolutely, bringing people back. We have people that go right into industry, very successful. We have people in the Ivy Leagues. We have people in the service academies. And those folks coming back and sharing their stories lets our students say to themselves, wow, Ladd did it, I can do it.
That's it, that's it. Wish you the best.
Thank you very much.
Coming to you from the capital of the Eastern Shore, the city of Salisbury, Maryland, let me introduce everyone to the Wicomico County Public School Superintendent, Dr. Micah C. Stauffer. Thank you so much for taking time to be on our show and sharing some of the highlights and challenges that you are experiencing here in the Wicomico County Public School System.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Colston. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's always
great to spend some time with you.
It's always a pleasure, definitely. As we kind of start out, we always like to ask the question, what are some of the more significant accomplishments and achievements that you would like to share with our viewing audience about the Wicomico County Public School System?
Well, when someone asks me about the accomplishments in our school system, I immediately always go to our wonderful students and our wonderful staff and the wonderful things that are happening in all of our schools. For instance, some of the highlights that I think that I'm seeing in our school system from the achievements of our students. Last year alone, the graduates of 2023 earned over $27 million in scholarships to colleges and universities across the United States. That is absolutely amazing. We have a wonderful fine arts program here in our school system. We have all-state musicians and band and chorus and all-shore musicians. We also have an outstanding CTE program, as I know many are aware of. We have Skills USA students that are earning state championships and also earning to be national finalists in what they do and their skills within the CTE program and what they learn there. So they're being recognized across this country for what they're able to do and what we're accomplishing as a school system. We have student athletes that are earning state championships in their sports. We also have College Board recognition recipients, numerous AP scholars, and I think one thing that I'm really proud of with our dual enrollment program, we went from about 60 courses last year to now we're over 120 offerings for our dual enrollment students in coursework that they can take either at Salisbury University, at Warwick, or UMES. We've gone from no early college pathways to now we are over 20, where students can earn an associate's degree at the same time that they graduate from high school.
That's phenomenal.
When you look at our teaching staff, our Teacher of the Year recipients for Wicomico County, the last 4 years have been state finalists for Maryland Teacher of the Year. We also have model programs, our early childhood education program, our Birth to 5 program, our TAD program and our magnet programs, along with special education, they're model programs that we receive regular recognition from the state level all the time. So I'm extremely proud of the accomplishments that we're able to enjoy here in Wicomico County Public Schools, and I think that really is a strong indicator of the great job that our staff are doing, that our administrators are doing each and every day to help our students achieve and learn.
And I also like to note, I really am impressed with the new logo that you have brought to Wicomico County Public Schools. And for those in the audience that are not aware, the dual enrollment program allows students to actually take college courses while they are taking high school graduation courses, so that when they walk across the stage to get their high school diploma, they, in some instances, have already completed their freshman year in college.
Oh, in many cases that provides a leg up. And there's a lot of different benefits to that program. They get on a college campus, earlier before they go to college to experience what that's like, the independence that goes along with that, the responsibility that they have to have in order to achieve in those classes. I think all of that gives them that experience and a leg up prior to going to college after they graduate school. And like you said, they can start their college experience already having a number of college credits under their belt that they can transfer right into a university.
And for parents, that saves a lot of money.
It does. And under Blueprint, we now are paying, we have the funding to be able to pay the tuition for those students that are eligible to take dual enrollment courses. We pay for the tuition and the fees to be able to, for them to be able to go and participate in those programs.
Funny you should mention the Blueprint. The Blueprint for Maryland's Future. Yes, on the one hand, it provides financial resources and support to Wicomico County, but it also requires outcomes and measurables. As you begin to implement this Blueprint for Maryland's Future here in Wicomico County, what are some of the challenges that you foresee both now and also for the next 8 years?
Sure. I'd say as you go through, and there are 5 pillars that make up the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. The first being early childhood education. So if we look at pre-K, it's hard to find someone that'll argue with the fact that getting students into our learning environments earlier will not help them achieve and get them a better foundation as they go into kindergarten. So we know that pre-K is certainly something that's very beneficial and important for our students to be able to participate in. So, but if you think about the challenges in public education and under Blueprint, we are going from a K through 12 school system now to a pre-K through 12 school system in public education. So we're adding a whole nother grade level to our schools. So we are able to have funding to be able to hire staff, obviously, to do that, and the supports that go along with that. But one challenge that we're seeing is that there isn't capital funding to be able to support that. So if you think about adding another grade level to your school system, you need space to be able to do that. And through Blueprint, there is no capital funding to add additional space to schools, additional classrooms, additions to schools, or portable classrooms. So that challenge is being able to add, for us in Wicomico, we have around 1,100 to 1,200 students per grade level. And currently we have around 800 students in pre-K, and that'll continue to expand as we go through the years of Blueprint implementation. But doing that without having the funding to be able to actually physically add the space that we need to do that is quite a challenge. So that's one area of Blueprint that would be a challenge. If we look at another area, it would be Pillar 2 is the high quality and diverse teachers and leaders within our school system. So we are getting funding to be able to increase teacher salaries with the idea of recruiting more teachers and higher quality teachers into the profession of education. However, at the same time, across the entire nation, we are experiencing teacher shortage. So there are less college students that are going into the teacher profession. So being able to offer those higher salaries, I think, is certainly needed to be able to attract the best and brightest into our classrooms, which is what we want. While at the same time, we need the response for more teachers, more students to go into the teaching profession to really fill the void that we're seeing with the teacher shortage. I think we've fared better than most here in Wicomico County, which I'm excited about. We have very few teacher vacancies, but we are seeing the pool of teachers, prospective teachers going into the profession getting smaller, and that's certainly a concern as well.
Yeah.
When we look at college and career readiness, which is pillar 3, we know that I feel in Wicomico County Public Schools, as I said, we are doing a great job of preparing students for college. We also have, I think, the best CTE program in the entire state, and we're doing a great job of getting students into a career that are going through our CTE program. But Blueprint says all students need to be college and career ready, and yes, they do. So for students that aren't college bound, but they also aren't in our career technology education programs, we have to find ways to get them college and career ready. And the way to do that is through apprenticeships, which is also a piece of implementation within the Blueprint. However, in a more rural area where there are less industries really to go into, we're finding a challenge to be able to find the number of apprenticeships and businesses and agencies to be able to meet the MSDE requirements that are required, through Blueprint. That has certainly been, I think, a challenge for us as we go forward. I look for that to hopefully continue to improve, but currently that is a challenge that we are seeing.
Yeah.
And then also the fourth pillar is making sure that we have more resources for student success. And also in this area, we are seeing an explosion of English language learners into our school system, which does require a number of resources to be able to educate students that are not only going through the rigors of an academic program, but learning English at the same time. And we're also seeing the intensity of our special education, the needs of our special education students really continue to rapidly increase as well. One example is in Maryland, there are about 100 facilities that are therapeutic facilities to really be able to meet the vast needs, the higher needs of special education students that we sometimes see. However, here on the Eastern Shore, there's only one facility.
Wow.
And on the lower Eastern Shore, there are no facilities.
Wow.
So one area that I'm concerned about is that the responsibility falls to the public school system to be able to meet that growing and diverse need that we are seeing in our special education population. But without the resources in our community to help support us in doing that, those responsibilities fall back on us. So one area that I'd like to see change is to bring a therapeutic facility that can meet the high needs for special education students that we are starting to see here in our public school system. And I think just as we move forward, the last thing to think about with Blueprint is funding.
Yeah.
There's a tremendous amount of state funding that's going into the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. However, a lot of that legislation was crafted prior to COVID and prior to the inflation that we have seen and experienced again across our nation over the last several years. So it's a challenge to meet all of the requirements that are in Blueprint with the level of funding that was developed 5 years ago that did not account for the inflation that we're seeing now.
Yeah, and I think that's got to ricochet effect, because you're also looking at the tax base and how much the county can give in to support the blueprint within each county.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As having the ultimate responsibility for the performance and safety of all of your students, all of your teachers, all of your staff here in Wicomico County Public Schools, what is your position on school-based discipline and consequences for students as we look at the Maryland State Department of Education mandates?
I think it's a concern when, as a local school system, we see legislation or mandates from MSDE that are limiting the flexibility that I feel we should have as a local school system to address the conduct that we are seeing in our schools. I think it's also something where, conduct, when you look at a code of conduct, you need to have very clear expectations for student behavior. You also need to have very clear accountability and consequences for that behavior when we see that occurring in our schools. So we've worked hard recently in Wicomico County Public Schools in conjunction with our Board of Education to revise our code of conduct and making sure that two things, that we are clearly addressing and sending a message that we will not tolerate violent behavior in our schools, and also that we don't want to see repeated disruptive behavior in our schools and specifically in our classrooms that would prevent students from learning and prevent our teachers from teaching. So for me, any legislation or any mandate that's going to take the flexibility that we have as a school system away from us to be able to address the needs that we're seeing in our schools, the interventions that we need to put in our schools, and also the accountability that needs to exist for our students and our staff regarding making sure that we have a positive learning environment that's maintained in our schools. I think we need to make sure that we have that flexibility within our school system to address those behaviors and to ensure that we have the learning environment that we want and that's positive for our teachers to teach in and for all of our students to be able to learn in.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Great. From the bay to the coast, here on the Atlantic Ocean, I'd like to introduce everyone to Mr. Lewis H. Taylor, Superintendent of the Worcester County Public School System. Hello there.
How are you, sir?
Thank you so much for taking the time out to be on our show and sharing with our viewing audience some of the highlights and challenges you are experiencing here in the Worcester County Public Schools. I have a few questions for you.
Sure.
And I've asked these same questions to all the other superintendents here on the Lower Eastern Shore. So we'll start off with the first one. And that is, what are some of the more significant accomplishments and achievements that you would like our viewing audience to know about the Worcester County Public Schools?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's my honor. Anytime I get to brag about our school system, I love that. So I appreciate the offer today. There are so many things I could start with, but let me just highlight a couple. First and foremost, I'm very proud of our student performance and our student achievement. Worcester County Public Schools ranks first and second in just about every testing area in the state of Maryland. That comes with a lot of hard work, and that makes me very proud of our staff, our people who work to make student achievement a priority here in Worcester County. And so our performances over the last several years continue to get better. We are faced with challenges, and it takes a lot of work in those areas. But student performance is something on the forefront that we are very proud of. Another area is educational technology. About 5 or 6 years ago, we made a complete technology change here in Worcester County. We went to Apple, And we were very fortunate. I think the man upstairs was looking down on us because it was prior right to the pandemic. And so when we went one-to-one, we had an initiative to go to one-to-one, but we were ahead of the curve when the pandemic hit. And we went to the Apple products, and we have just flourished. I had great leadership in putting that plan together. We changed the entire plan for the school system. It was a very expensive plan that our county government supported us on. And we continue to be a system that Apple tells us that really excels in the use of their products and what we do with our products. Now, it's not just about the products. It's what we do with our professional development to train our teachers, to work with our kids. We have 3 Apple Distinguished Schools right now in this county, and it's our hope to get more as time goes on. So between student achievement and our technology plan here in Worcester County, those are 2 that really resonate with me as I think about success and I think about the journey that we are on here in Worcester County Public Schools.
Fantastic. I did not know anything about that relationship with Apple. Wow. And I'm an Apple fan. That's great. Now, let me ask this question. The blueprint for Maryland's future. Yes, it brings financial resources and support to Worcester County, but it also requires accountability and student outcomes. Sure. So my question is, what are some of the challenges that you see both now and in the next 8 years, if you will, for implementing the blueprint here in Worcester County?
Well, one is that Worcester County gets the least amount of state funding, or one of the top 2 or 3 to receive the least amount of state funding here on the shore and even in the state of Maryland. So the challenge that I'm faced with, 83% of our funds come from our county government, and that formula will transfer to the blueprint. So we are faced with huge challenges financially. One is that can we meet some of the demands the blueprint are putting out? And I think the blueprint is good, don't get me wrong, but financially I'm going to have a huge challenge. The other thing, a part of that financial challenge is that by 2027, our starting teacher salary has to be at $60,000. Right now, Worcester County is 24 out of 24. We're at the bottom in starting teaching salary with just a little over $50,000. So that's going to be another challenge in itself to get our teachers up to speed when it comes to the financial burden of the blueprint. And third, the thing that comes to mind with me is a lot of the expenses that kids have had to pay in the past, i.e. dual enrollment, advanced placement. Those type of things are now going to be left in the hands of the school systems across the state of Maryland, which again, we don't know exactly where we will land and how many kids. You know, our kids are prospering educationally. We have more kids taking advanced placement today. We have more kids in dual enrollment today than we've ever had. Also from the technology school. So many things that are taking place there as they move towards apprenticeships, as they move towards on-the-job training. We have kids that are leaving us as high school graduates right now and within 3 years who have studied a trade over at our technical high school who are making close to 6 figures. And so we have the responsibility to prepare them. It is our job to prepare them and not slow them down or hold them back. All of those things that I mentioned are going to take money. And then on top of that, our teachers are being asked to be nationally board certified. And to be nationally board certified comes with a financial package. And also, if they get that national board certification, for us to pay them more and to look at where they're teaching. If they teach in one of our Title I schools or our schools that have high levels of poverty, their pay will be a little bit more than the average teacher. So I tell you all that to say the financial piece just continues to grow on us. And so we're going to have to find ways to make that work. And that becomes a challenge for me, but it becomes a challenge for all the 24 superintendents in the state of Maryland.
I think you're right on point with that. As I've interviewed the other superintendents, that seems to be a critical concern across the Lower Eastern Shore.
Very concerned about that.
Yeah, the financial commitment that the county has to implement in order for it to come in. As having the ultimate responsibility for the safety and security of your teachers, your students, as well as your staff, what is your position, if you will, on school-based discipline and, I guess, consequences for students as you implement that Maryland State Department of Education mandates, as well as the proposed state legislation? I think that's House Bill 1114.
Correct.
Dealing with prohibitive behavior on school grounds. What is your position regarding that?
Well, first and foremost, my number one priority in the school system has been since the day I took over as superintendent is school safety. And I will tell you that our schools are safe. Does that mean we don't still have issues and problems? No, we do, because the mental health issues in our kids' lives today, the trauma-induced behaviors that we're experiencing are greater than ever before. You know, we're putting more behavioral specialists in schools. We're putting folks in who can work with those kids who have those challenges, but we're also seeing it in the adult population. It's not just a one age group situation. One of the things that we do here, we have great safety leadership. We have great safety plans in place. We do a number of programs from safe and supported schools to training in UCURA and also in I Love You Guys training. Our safety today, and I've been around a long time, this is my 40th year. I've been around a long time. I've run a high school for 17 of those years. Our schools today are safer than they ever have been because I've been there. But that doesn't mean we're not dealing with more challenging behaviors. And so we have to provide, to meet that House Bill recommendations, we have to provide programs like restorative actions and restorative practices to encourage kids to understand what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, and then find solutions to work with them. You know, every kid deserves a right to an education. Every kid deserves a right to come in and learn in an environment that is safe and conducive for learning. And so as our leadership team works to make that a priority and continue to make that a priority, I am very pleased where we are with our safety protocols. I'm very pleased where we are with the programs that we've introduced in the school system. And we've revised every school safety plan in the last 12 months. And I'm very impressed with what our school leadership, my executive leadership, everyone involved has done to meet the needs of our young people, so that when they come in, if there are issues, that we handle them and we teach them the appropriate behaviors that are acceptable in a school setting. Really, they mirror what's acceptable in society. And we have a responsibility to do that. What happens is it makes it more challenging because we have that piece on our table. We've also got the piece of making sure they are learning and meeting the demands of instruction and the things they need to receive a high school diploma ultimately. So it's a large task. But I can tell you Worcester County Public School staff is up to the challenge, and they come in every single day ready to perform and to give their very best. And that's what makes me proud to be the superintendent here in Worcester County.
Well, I applaud your emphasis on what's important, and I appreciate the buy-in that you've been able to cultivate, not only within the community, but more importantly with the teachers and staff that you brought in. And obviously the students are reflective of the outcomes from that.
We're only as good as our teachers and those who teach our young people. And the end result, if this were a business, we want to have the number one product out on the market, and that product are those 6,800 kids who come to our school every single day.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we wish you the best.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me today.
It's been a pleasure. Well, this brings us to a close for episode number 2 of now in our second season. Please tune in for our next episode where we will feature the workforce topic, business apprenticeships for students wanting professional careers here on the Eastern Shore. Until then, remember, education is everybody's business.